the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We welcome everyone to the program, joined by one of my favorite people. Had the honor of being on his program earlier in the week from when he was in Dallas. He's now in L.A. babysitting Kobe and LeBron. Stephen A. Smith, welcome to the program. How are you, my man?
What's going on, Paul? How are you, buddy? How's everything?
It's great. I've said this before to you in person, and I'm watching you and Skip today, and I know you're paid a fair salary, but I don't think you're paid enough to have to talk to him every day of the week, Stephen A.
I'm telling you, he's something else, man. I mean, he's such a brat, and I mean that affectionately because, every time, he's a San Antonio Spurs fan. They lose a regular season game. It's like Armageddon. The world is going to collapse. And then now it's the Dallas Cowboys. They got robbed. It's the biggest robbery in history. They should be playing this week and all of this other stuff. But when they got over the week before against Detroit, that was perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But now that they suffered the consequences, the world is coming to an end. It's Skip Bayless is who I deal with every day, but I love him.
Does he get paid extra for saying Stephen A. like every fourth word?
He loves saying my name. What can I say? I don't know what to say, but it doesn't bother me. He says it because it's like it's a prelude to something. It's like Stephen A. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what's coming? So that's really what it is. But it's a lot of fun.
He went off for at least 4 minutes on what a great move it was for Cardell Jones to come back and have a news conference, and they went to you, and you said, I was not impressed. I loved it.
Well, with Cardell Jones, I was impressed, though. In that particular instance, for him, I understood what it was all about. It was a bigger deal to me, Paul, because of where he comes from, the community, what he has to deal with, some of the trials and tribulations. I know some of the brothers from the Ohio area, that Glenville area, they talk about how rough it is, how a lot of guys don't make it out of there. So for me to be 22 years of age and just to have a press conference at his high school wasn't a big deal on its face. But then when you take into account the experiences that he had to do to endure, the desolate environment he comes from, some of the trials and tribulations, walking those streets, pounding those pavements, having to go through what you have to go through just to make it out of there, knowing Ted Ginn Sr. is a coach there in that community and how many lives that he's saving, the fact that you wanted to use that venue to really highlight the importance of staying in school and not just running to the pros for the money, I thought was significant, and I appreciated that part of it all. And that's why I thought it was a significant thing myself.
I wanted to ask you, piggybacking on that, you obviously swim in all waters, whether it's, I heard you talking about prize fighting yesterday or the NFL, or obviously you're out in L.A. for the NBA. But you spent a lot of time in Dallas, maybe more than you wanted. But what was it like being around college football's biggest stage, and what did you take away from that?
Well, believe it or not, it wasn't as big as I thought it was going to be. I know the game rated exceptionally well, and the folks from Oregon and obviously Ohio State were packed. But it was only like that for like the last couple of days, like for the weekend from Saturday on. That entire week that I was down there, leading up to the national championship game, people were into the game or whatever, but they were more into the Cowboys because the Cowboys had a playoff game coming up that Sunday. And you didn't get the feel that you had expected. To me, I thought that the game itself was big time. Obviously, Ohio State and Oregon was a big time game, but I also got the impression, Paul, you just got the sense that people would have preferred seeing Alabama and Florida State. Alabama because it's Alabama, and Florida State because of Jameis Winston and all the name recognition his name brings. You just got the impression that pizzazz was sort of missing, but only in the week leading up to the game, not once the weekend arrived.
And how would that compare to the many Super Bowls you've been around?
Well, I got to tell you, Super Bowl week, it depends on how thrilling it is. Like, if you're talking about Tom Brady and the New England Patriots going up against the New York Giants, it's hyped. When you talked about Peyton Manning going up against Rex Grossman and the Chicago Bears, it's significantly different. It's really about the competition. And I think that, with college football, the unpredictability of it all with Oregon and Ohio State had a lot to do with how it rated, obviously. But in terms of fervor, in terms of name recognition, in terms of people really, really looking forward to an epic encounter, I really think that depends on the competition. In my opinion, as great as the weekend ended up being, as great as the night of the national championship ended up being, it would have been far more significant and thrilling if it had been Alabama, Ohio State playing for the national championship instead of in the playoffs itself, to be honest with you.
No, I agree. I mean, it was a classic matchup, but it was missing something, and I think you discovered what it was missing. Well, of course, and maybe the next time Nick Saban can get a couple of better plays in the game from Lane Kiffin, and Jameis Winston won't fall over and fumble for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about a couple of other things, not to get back to what you're doing in L.A., but you've been talking a lot about LeBron, Kobe, the whole situation. You've been out there a couple of days, and what's your takeaway from the Cavs and LeBron and where this is going?
Well, first of all, they've got a lot of problems, and it's relatable to any show, Paul, because even though, you could be talking about college football, you could be talking about college basketball, this transcends all of that because it's not just about the court of play per se. It's how people are, how committed people are to working together to achieve one goal. You've got a situation in Coach David Blatt, who was hired by the GM David Griffin. And he was hired by the owner, Dan Gilbert. And there's a level of loyalty that Dan Gilbert is showing to David Griffin. David Griffin is showing to the coach. But the coach doesn't necessarily garner that from the players. He's young. He's never coached on the NBA level, on any level. He was a star in Europe, but deemed to be incredibly unfamiliar with today's NBA player and NBA coaches that you have to go against. So when you've got a guy like LeBron James who was gone for 4 years and he returns, and even though he didn't guarantee an NBA championship, we all know what the expectations are. There's a lot of pressure. So he's looking at it and he's saying, okay, did you learn the errors of your ways, Cleveland Cavaliers organization, and give me all the pieces that I need to work with, not just as players, but from an organizational standpoint in terms of leadership from top, from a coaching standpoint, instead of having the right coach there to keep the troops in line and to make sure that you're doing everything you can to maximize the potential around us. LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers would beg to differ. And that doesn't mean they dislike the coach David Blatt. It doesn't mean they have something against him personally. It doesn't mean that they're incompetent or anything like that, like other folks have been reporting. But what it does mean is that there are some question marks as to whether or not he was truly ready for the challenge that, by the way, he wasn't hired to embrace. When he was hired before LeBron James had agreed to come back to Cleveland. So they essentially had hired David Blatt to be a part of a rebuilding project when, in fact, he's not rebuilding. All of a sudden, LeBron arrives, and immediately you're elevated to championship expectations. For LeBron James and others, that may be a bit too much to put on a guy like this, but ownership doesn't see it. Management doesn't see it because that's the guy they hired, and they want to validate their pick. And so you have two sides, the players and upper management. They are diametrically opposed, with a decent coach who may end up being a very good coach, pretty much stuck in the middle, having to find a way to maneuver his way through this terrain. It's a headache. It's not something that's conducive to winning, but it is what the Cleveland Cavaliers situation is right now. And they're going to have to find a way to deal with it. Otherwise, bodies are going to fall. Figuratively speaking, of course, I'm talking about their job security.
Stephen, we head into a really important weekend for football, of course, the two biggest games of the year. But come Monday, many will pause for the holiday, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. What does that mean to you?
It means so many things. I mean, when I think about the fact that I was wise enough, I wasn't stupid enough to continue telling my mother I didn't want to go to college, and basketball ultimately made me fall in love with the classroom, and I ended up graduating with honors and getting my education. That has a lot to do with it. Seeing how we've evolved as a society, and in some respects how we've devolved as a society, also resonates with me when I think about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., because I see an individual that was about equal rights, about civil rights for all, and about a common core decency, not just for the American people, but for all people. And yet in our society, on far too many occasions, although we have made incredible progress, at the same time, on occasion, we seem to take a step back here and there far too often than I know he would desire, and I certainly desire. We think about things from a racial or ethnic standpoint, Our prejudices sometimes are worn on our sleeves, sometimes are a bit quieter, but it just seems to be no place for so many things that goes on. And contrary to popular belief, although as a black man I can sit here and tell you things like racism exist and prejudices exist and what have you, the fact of the matter is black folks ourselves, we do things wrong too. We harbor our own prejudices. We judge prematurely. We judge a book by its cover. We don't sit there and are inclined, per se, as often as we should be, to give people the benefit of the doubt and to judge individuals the way Martin Luther King wanted us to be judged, by the content of their character as opposed to the color of their skin. We can be guilty of a lot of things ourselves. And so I think overall as a society, we have moved in a forward direction. We have made progress. But at the same time, when I think about him, I'm also reminded of the fact that we still have a long ways to go, because all of us as a people need to be better as people for the better collective whole. We're only as strong as our weakest link. And if we kick people down and try to keep them down and don't do what we can to try to uplift ourselves as individuals, as a community, as a city, as a state, as a nation, then we're going to all fall together. And if we don't adopt that mentality, we're just not going to be better. And so to me, that's what I think about when I think about Martin Luther King. We've improved, we've gotten better, but we still have a long way to go. But it's not just white folks, Hispanic folks, Asian Americans, or anybody else. It's black people too. We can all do better.
Wonderful stuff. Stephen A., thank you again. It's always such a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you, buddy.
Talk
to you soon.
Great stuff. Stephen A. Smith on so many different subjects. We'll take a break, come back, get some more phone calls here, and talk to Jay Paterno coming up as well.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Jay Paterno joins us, of course, on a very historic day. And Jay, thanks always. It's wonderful to catch up, and to say the least, we want to get your reaction to the news of the day.
Well, obviously, it's a big day in that it's another positive step forward towards resolving this entire thing, and really it's a sign of the NCAA really realizing this was a rush to judgment. This was a panic, and so obviously it's a good step in the right direction.
In terms of where you and the family are in all the legal battles, I know that it's a long fight. Where are you, and where does it go?
Well, we still haven't gotten to some of the, one of the things that we set out for and we've said from day one is, look, this has never been about just wins. It's never been about the wins. And that is as true now as it was the first day that this entire thing came down. So it's been about the truth. It's been about finding out why the Board of Trustees at Penn State and the NCAA made some of the decisions they made to really damage the reputation of a great university, damage the reputation of a football program that was truly built on success with honor, and there are still some questions and things that have to be answered. So we're going to continue to pursue the truth. But I think there's also an element of we need to pursue the truth, not just for the university, but certainly some of the victims that were harmed in this entire saga as well.
Jay, certainly we're learning things every day with more information coming out. I'm assuming, and you're not supposed to assume in my business, that you know all this by now. Talk a little bit about what's getting out there in the public, particularly with Emirates apparently wanting to and having some support for shutting the program down.
Well, I think the USA Today article was very interesting, and some of those depositions are things that we had seen already. Clearly, he and Ed Ray are not on the same page. Emmert clearly acted outside of it looks like he acted outside of his authority and was less than an honest dealer in going out there and telling Penn State that he had to support the presidents to impose a death penalty when Ed Ray testified that the vote looked like it was something like 19-2 on the executive committee of the NCAA against threatening the death penalty. So there's obviously a lot of things that are being found in discovery and in emails and in depositions. So, it certainly looks as though the Free Report was written with a predetermined conclusion and shaped to fit what they wanted. So, there's a lot of things that are coming out that continue to just make you scratch your head and go, wow, this is worse than I thought.
Jay, a lot of people have been critical of you and when you've talked about it with your book, of your family, but do you feel somewhat vindicated. I don't know if somewhat's the best way of describing it, or vindicated now that so much of this is coming out and is telling a completely different story. I know you've been on this for some time, and some of us are just now waking up.
Yeah, I mean, every day step forward is a positive day for us. And look, there are a lot of people say, why don't you just go away? Why let it go? But you know what? When you love a place like Penn State as much as we do, when you love a university like we do, obviously I was part of the program. I love the program. I love the athletic department. And, I love my father. But, you want justice in this country. You want due process. You want the facts. And so you fight for those things. And those are things that are worth fighting and dying for. So we're going to fight for them. And we're going to continue to fight for them. And so every time you have a victory, yeah, obviously it's a good day and you smile. But you understand that, look, Jake Corman and Senator Corman and Treasurer McCord of Pennsylvania have done a great job. They got the ball in the red zone. And now we've got to punch it across the goal line. That's the easiest way I can say it.
People certainly are reacting to the news of this day. There's almost news every day connected to your dad and Penn State. But your specific reaction to the reversal of the vacation of wins, what does that mean to you and your family?
Well, I think it's what it means to Penn State as well as to my family, because really my dad was the first to say, look, they're not my wins. And what it means to the guys who played in those things. I talked to Michael Robinson today, and, he was just, he was excited and happy. And, he said, we still have some work to do. But, it was, there's kind of we have always been arrogant enough to think you can never take the wins away. But, when Michael Robinson's son opened up a media guide and said, I thought you won 11 games in 2005, and it says you were 0-1, that's a pretty telling statement, and that's something that means something to guys that took a lot of hits and fought and battled and, in those games and went to class and did things the right way. So, yeah, it's meaningful to so many people.
Jay, in terms of the battle, certainly criticism, you've addressed that, to minor victories along the way today, a big victory. What is the final thing, what is the final disposition, the final result that you and your family are looking for, and I guess the many fans of your father and fans of Penn State football as well?
Well, I think the truth has got to come out, and some people have to, we're going to get some people under oath, and they're going to have to say some things, and when this litigation is finally settled, I think that's, like I said, it's never been just about wins. So, all Joe said to us before he died was, look, we just need to get to the truth, and that's all he wanted. And to stop short of that, I think, would be unfortunate, and that really wouldn't be honoring what he's always wanted. And he lived his entire life that way.
Most people remember him very fondly, although we had a call a minute ago saying, I can't believe you're defending Joe Paterno, and I can't believe you're defending what he stood for. And then you know the rest. You've heard it many, many more times than I have. How do you address those? How do you answer those people who really don't know your father like you did? I mean, obviously you're his son. You worked for him. You coached with him. What would you say to those people?
Well, I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I understand that. I understand why people have that opinion if they've just kind of done reacted to some media reports they heard. But the truth of the matter is, the one incident that they all want to kind of pin to him, he was told about what may or may not have been a crime, and he reported it. So, I think it's very important we don't get into the habit of vilifying people who report the types of crimes we're talking about, because we're going to send a very chilling message to a teacher or a nurse or somebody who works with young people who suspect something if one of the legacies of this entire saga is, look what happened to Joe Paterno in his life when he reported something, and I'm just a teacher at a middle school. What chance do I have to defend myself? So I think that's going to be an important outcome of all this if we can reverse that.
Jay, many thanks. You've been great, often coming on, and we appreciate it, and we wish you well.
Well, I appreciate it very much. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Jay Paterno, the son of the legendary Joe Paterno. You've certainly heard the news of the day that his wins have been restored, but you also heard from Jay Paterno that this fight is not over yet. And in many ways, Jay Paterno and his family are being vindicated with each victory, some bigger than others. I was of the opinion that they were the family that wouldn't go away, that it was time for them to shut up, go to the corner, and let the system work itself out. But in their defense and in deference to them, the truth is finally coming out, and it's not the same truth we were told on the day that Mark Emmert stood before everyone and grandstanded against Penn State and against Joe Paterno.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Welcome back. Certainly a busy day reacting to many different things, including the news about Joe Paterno. For those of you just joining us, we talked to Jay Paterno a moment ago. I wasn't sure as he said it if he meant it, exactly what he was trying to say, but he said something that's getting a lot of reaction. Best thing to do is go back and listen to it, and then we can decide. This is Jay Paterno from moments ago here on our show.
The one incident that they all want to kind of pin to him, he was told about what may or may not have been a crime, and he reported it. So, I think it's very important we don't get into the habit of vilifying people who report the types of crimes we're talking about. Okay,
that's exactly what I thought he said. He said he reported what may or may not have been a crime. I think we all know now with Sandusky behind bars for the rest of his life what it was. It was a crime, of course. What he meant, I'm really not certain. Clearly he was defending his father. He was trying to parse words and let the audience know that when Joe Paterno discovered what he thought, what he wasn't sure, what he could have been, he reported that. That's I'm not a lawyer on this show. We'll let everyone else figure that out. But I think the conventional wisdom of the public and most reasonable people is pretty clear. Joe Paterno didn't do anything until later. Now, that story's been told 2,000. If not 2 million times. Tim is next, Canton, Ohio. Good afternoon, Tim.
Hey, good afternoon, Paul. Hey, I wanted to call. I wanted to say just really quickly, I wanted to say something about the playoffs, but I did have a comment about Joe Paterno. But I think what would be really helpful for the playoffs, and luckily I heard maybe another coach allude to what the coaches are pushing for, is to get the winners of all the conferences, Big Ten, SEC, and stuff like that, those who win their division that are going to be automatically in the playoffs, and that's what the coaches are pushing for. So I'm really praying that happen. I think that'll solve a lot of everybody's angst and, comments about stuff about getting SEC shut out or Big Ten shut out. At least everybody each division or conference will have their own, chance to prove themselves. I did want to say about Joe Paterno, I think what he went through, I think people would be shocked at how much this type thing is going on in the bureaucracy. I don't think he did anything wrong. I love Joe Paterno. He loved football, just like me. And but that has nothing to do with it. I was in a situation about 20 years ago where I literally walked in on a coworker molesting a patient at a hospital. I walked away for a few seconds. He chased me down the hall. He's like, "Oh, don't tell, because I'll tell something on you." And I'm like, "Well, that's all I need to hear." So I went in, I turned him in, and I used to be loved on that floor. Everybody loved me. I got along with everybody, and the next thing I know, everybody turned on me. People were saying, "Oh, well, he was of a different skin color than me," and so then I was a racist, and everybody got involved, and then the decision was made by the higher-ups in the hospital, all of which were women, to decide not to do anything to allow him to resign. So all these women decided that, okay, he was molesting a patient. They knew it was true. Came out that the last place he worked at, he had done the same thing. They let him resign. So they're like, well, they didn't want to make a bad name for the hospital, so they let him resign. 2 days later, he was working at another hospital. So, if people want to wake up, Joe did nothing wrong. Coach Paterno did nothing wrong. He did everything right. Everybody wants to attack this issue. He did what he was supposed to do. I did what I was supposed to do.
I'm not sure he did, but I know what you're talking about. And the difference, though, I would say, Tim, in your situation, you're just one person, and many people have lost by doing what you did and suffered mightily. You know that. Joe Paterno could afford to do whatever he wanted. He owned the university. If he could decide right then to go in there and grab Jerry Sandusky and throw him out on the street. But the problem was that maybe he didn't do that for a reason. Maybe he knew something else. Maybe Sandusky knew something on him.
Well,
you know what the game's all about.
Right, but I think also at the same time, it's possible that everybody's assuming he actually knew more than he did. Maybe what his son was saying is that, well, maybe it was a crime, maybe it wasn't. Well, I think what he was saying is he was operating on hearsay. Somebody had reported to him that they had seen this or they suspected or they had heard. And so Joe was like, well, I know him. I can't believe it, but I've heard a report or two. I need to report it to the police.
But I wonder, too, Tim, and I don't mean to dig up 4 years ago, but a lot of times...
20. It was actually 20, so I'm...
Well, I'm talking about, what...
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
But a lot of times, if, these men knew each other very well, they were close friends, and sometimes... you can look the other way a little too much.
And I agree. But, and I think that happens in schools. Every time you hear about a teacher that is doing something, everybody wants to believe that all these teachers, men and women who are having sex with students, nobody knows about it. But the truth is, I guarantee you they do, and you never hear about any investigation on that because nobody can shut down a school. If it was a science teacher, you're not going to shut down the science department or, So I think, I think it was a horrible situation. I still love him as, if not my favorite college coach of all time, one of them, because he had a love for football. And from what I've heard about it, I truly don't believe that he was a definite in the know. And I it's not that I don't want to believe. I just have a little more, I have experienced it firsthand what goes on, and it's just a bad situation.
Tim, thank you very much. And I'll say this, I'm not trying to get the last word in here, but there is a big difference between what Tim in Canton, Ohio sees on his floor of a hospital and the most powerful man on that university. And I think that's the frustration that many have had with what went on up there, or what we think went on up there. We know what went on one level. We don't know the rest of it. Let's continue with more phone calls. Jumbo is calling from Tuscaloosa. Hey, Jumbo.
Hey, Paul. Hey, John. Thanks for taking my call. Listen, two things. I want to comment on Coach Paterno. He's a class of college football. Him and Bear Bryant had some good wars together. Alabama's had some good wars with Penn State. I believe Joe Paterno, classy guy, got nothing bad to say about him. If I had a son, I'd want him to play for Joe Paterno if he was still coaching. The second thing is, what have you heard on Sylvester Croom? I think you were talking about it the other day. Is he coming to Alabama, or have they talked to him? And had Gene Chizik, has he been contacted by the university?
Gene Chizik has been hired by North Carolina to be the defensive coordinator under Larry Fedora. As far as Sly Croom, I haven't heard anything in relation to Sly going back to Alabama other than what someone said here the other day. I would tend to doubt it, but then again, I could be wrong. I'm here right now. I hear so many things from Tuscaloosa in terms of what's been going on down there that it really is difficult to separate fact from fiction.
Okay, I was watching a show last night, The Zone, and I could have swore that they said the university had talked to Coach Chizik, and I didn't know, but
no,
I just
not true. He's
he's
already in Chapel Hill, signed and sealed.
If anybody knew, you would know, so that's why I'm calling you and asking. Okay, you guys have a great weekend. Roll Tide. We'll talk to you.
Thank you. Appreciate the call very much. Austin is in Pasadena, Texas, right outside of Houston. How are you, Austin? Austin, you there? Apparently not. Jared is in Philadelphia, which is in Philadelphia, of course.
Of course, outside. Hi, Paul.
All right.
I'm a Big Ten fan, but I enjoy watching your show very much.
Thank you.
Sure. Just some legal information, because as Jay said, there's just been, you could see how people get confused so easily on what Joe has done and what he hasn't done. or what he was, many people thought he should have done. There's a website that explains a lot of this. It's called The Framing of Paterno. But legally in the state of Pennsylvania, once Joe reported that crime, his hands were tied. He was not really able to do anything else once the authorities got involved, and that would be tampering of a case. So many people don't understand that, they expected Joe to do this or do that, but once the authorities knew about it, and especially the higher-ups, Joe would have been in trouble legally to do anything. And a lot of people just don't understand what, he was legally allowed to do and not to do. And also, he did not have a good relationship with Sandusky. I followed Penn State most of my life. He told Jerry he would not be the head coach. They did not, they were not close associates. And so there's a lot that's sort of behind the scenes that if you really haven't followed it, you can understand why people get confused on what they hear. So
let me say this, Jared. I have followed it. I've written about it. I've talked about it. And,
sure.
And I can barely remember fact from fiction right now because it's been 3 or 4 years. I mean, it's
sure.
just one of those cases that you begin to wonder, and then and like anything else, and you understand this, you start to formulate an opinion, and nothing is going to change it.
And that's why, I'm not faulting anyone for their opinion, but there's a website, it's called Framing of Paterno. I'm not involved with it, but it's been tracking the whole case from a legal perspective, and that's where you can get an update.
Hey, glad you called. Thank you very much, Jared. Always a good conversation there. Let's continue. Jared is in Palm Beach, place I wouldn't mind being in Palm Beach on this Friday afternoon.
Am I on? I'm on?
Yes, you are. How are you, Jared?
Good. How are you?
Well, thanks.
I'd like to take a step away from the whole Penn State thing. I think in the NFL mock draft, Jameis Winston was drafted over Marcus Mariota. He got the first-round pick. And I just wanted to say that I think Marcus Mariota is pretty overrated. I think he is a really great quarterback, but I think Oregon had a great offensive playbook. And I think any great quarterback could have just been plugged in.
Well, let me jump in because we're short on time, and certainly a lot of time before the draft. Mariota is ranked right now behind Jameis, subject to change. I would respectfully disagree.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
We welcome you back. Certainly a lot of paternal conversation tonight, understandably so. Let's grab some more calls. And Tracy is in Tuscaloosa. Hey, Tracy.
Hey, Tracy, Paul, I'm actually in Huntsville, Alabama. How are you?
Good. Thanks for the call.
Well, first of all, Paul, I'm a listener of your show. You got a great show. And I want to say to all Alabama fans, look, we got nothing to hang our heads down for. We can't win them all, but we surely try. And we got a great team. Roll Tide. Congratulations to Ohio State. And Urban Meyer is a great coach. But we got a great coach, too, a great program. I hope nobody jumps ship. We'll be back. And greater and more powerful than ever. That's all I got to say about that. But I more specifically called to thank you for the plug that you gave me for the Roll Tide Rant Show video that's on YouTube. You did it. You remember you did it last Friday?
Yes, I did.
But when you did it, Paul, I had 300 views. I just put it up a little bit after Christmas. And I want you to know, when you made that rather humorous comment about it going to the top of the Billboard charts in front of Taylor Swift, I laughed at that. And you said because I made that one call to your show, Paul, you're the man. That site went stupid after you made that comment. That went so stupid that I made a stupid thing. I actually inadvertently deleted the video, but I put it back up, and demands for the video were coming in. They were saying, where's the video? I made a stupid mistake, and inadvertently deleted it, but I put it back up at the demand of all the people that heard your show and wanted to know, well, where was the video? Paul, I just want to call and say thank you very much. I hope I meet you one day. I don't know where the song's going to go. I don't know where the band instrumental's going to go. Wherever it goes, you're going to get a CD, an autographed CD from me when it's released. And I tell you, I don't know where it's going to go, but I owe you all the credit in the world. I'm going to continue to listen to your show. I'm one of your #1 fans. I didn't call just to give my song a plug. I called to give your show a plug and say thank you very, very much, no matter what. And I hope to see you next year, and we'll be bragging about the efforts of Alabama once again.
Thank you, Tracy. We appreciate it. Tracy up in Huntsville, and we'll listen to a couple of bars of his about-to-be-hit song. Sounds good to me. Joseph, I bet you have this on your iPod, Joseph.
Well, see, no, but I'll sure get up on there. But I'll tell you what, I'm not at all worried about Nick Saban, about the coaching chain with Lance Thompson and the other coach Kevin Steele. Those things happen. Those things happen. The coaches got to do the best for them, the best for the family. That's what they got to do. I don't really criticize coaching change as far as assistants. So I'm gonna kind of walk over there a little bit because life's full of adjustments. But then on the other hand, I'm gonna talk about a little bit and make a little report. Now, I know this old Iron Man character. He blocked Jim from Tuscaloosa, and he can't handle me. This guy wants to get a little personal. Talk about family. You don't do that, man. You got a vendetta with me. You talk to me, partner. That's what the hell you do. Now, you want to talk to me in honorable smack talk? We get on. We can do this. All right? We do it, but you keep family out of it. Now, you get into a war with Jim from Tuscaloosa. You can't handle him, and you block him. That's a sign of a coward. The old thing is you can't stand here, stay out the kitchen. When you get in a war with me, Joseph, a.k.a. Super Joe, you come into Hell's Kitchen. There's no escape from that, partner. Because I'll tell you right now, I'm making my first road visit to Auburn when I play Alabama in the Iron Bowl game in November. And I'm telling you right now, I'm coming in my white jersey. I might be sitting behind you. I might be sitting in front of you. Look, watch your back, son. There's certain boundaries you don't want to cross. You know what? You just play it. You get in the ring. You get in the yard with the big dogs. You will get bitten. That's all I'm going to say. Roll Tide.
Okay, partner. Zeke is next in Daytona Beach, Florida. What do you say, Zeke?
All right, Paul. Like you and John and Marcus when he's on, I've learned to channel my aggressive drives into more socially acceptable patterns of behavior. But I get steamed up when people talk about Urban Meyer not being a great coach. I set mine up as the Bear and Joe Paterno, but the old ball coach, Steve Spurrier, all three of them said one thing. The first goal that they ever had was to win the conference championship. But we've moved on from there, and things are totally different now. It's like the NFL. When they started doing this stuff, wild card teams can win it, and if our goal is to win the national championship, it's become a hell of a lot tougher now than it ever has before. And I remember being from Tennessee. I'm a Tennessee alum like you are, and I'm from Johnson City like Spurrier is, or was. And it's one of those things where I just think about that old thing that after the Bear passed away, his wife was saying leaving football killed him. Well, the same thing happened to Joe Paterno. To me, maybe Steve Spurrier will stay there. After hearing Henry talk about the book Spurrier, I'm glad because I'm going to get it. But that's something I've always thought about. Does it kill these guys that they can't coach anymore?
Well, yeah, and you remember this, Zeke, the famous line that Paul Bryan had. He said they asked him at one point as he was getting older, would you ever consider walking away? He said, no, I'm not going to quit. He said, if I did, I'd croak in a week. It was actually 27 days after his last
And you remember that if you were in Tennessee, and now I was there a little bit ahead of you, but I don't know whether you ever worked for the Beacon before, but they had that thing that came out about his wife moving to Nashville. Bear Bryant's wife moved to Nashville, Tennessee, and they asked her why, and she said, because I wanted to get as far away from college football as I could.
I do remember that.
Thank you very much. It's one of those things. I truly enjoy your show very much, and it's great.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's a fact. Well, we could tell, not that we will, but Bear Bryant stories all day. One of probably his favorite. He called the coach at Auburn one day about 6 o'clock in the morning, and nobody answered the phone. And finally, he got him about 7 or 8, and he said, "Man, what's wrong with you people? You don't take football seriously. You're not there by 6 o'clock in the morning." That was who Bryant was, and that's who Spurrier. Well, Spurrier is not quite as an early a riser, but I guarantee you Saban's in there at 6. Urban Meyer's in there earlier. That's just the way these guys roll. K-Dub is calling next. What's up, man?
What's up, partner? What's up,
partner? Hey, partner. Hey, by the way, that guy Joe from Tuscaloosa, he wrote a book about Alabama. Have you read it? I have.
I haven't yet. I might need to take that out. You sound very intriguing.
You can borrow it from my personal Alabama football book library.
I know you got plenty of those. You ain't got it on no holding up your coffee table and nothing like that. You ain't do them like that, then. I know how you will. Yeah. You'll get a book quick and dismiss it. I know your stories now. Have you actually read the book?
I read it in the airport.
Did I put you on the spot?
I mean, listen. With all due respect to Joe, it wasn't like reading Tolstoy or someone.
I understand that. Joe sounded like he was heated, though, man. You don't mind? I just need to give him a word of advice now. Now, Joe, you looking for our man at an Auburn football game. Good luck with that, brother. That guy don't go to no Auburn football game. That dude don't go to no football game. That Cheeto-infested dude, chest dude, don't go to no football games, man. Be for real, man.
Did you say Cheeto-infested dude?
Cheeto-infested, chested dude.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
You need to tell the story one day, Dub, how you and I, man, nearly got into it at a WJOX luncheon.
Do you need to hear it now? I don't mind telling you right now.
I've got nothing pressing.
So I mean, if you have to understand the show to know the show. I've been on this show quite some time, and our man has said some things about my family that I really didn't take too kindly to. So we meet up at a luncheon one day, and he comes up to me and puts his hand out. I want to shake my hand, and me being me, I don't, some people do this radio talking, this and that, but, I take stuff like that kind of seriously. So I was like, well, before we shake hands, I think you got some things to apologize for because, you said some things that I really didn't like. So he was like, I ain't apologize for nothing. You wait for an apology. You wrong. So, long story short, basically get the F out my face, get the running, get the step and kick rocks out of your see you later, goodbye, sir. Please get out my face. So, words were exchanged, which were...
So were you ready, because I remember, I think I'd already left, Dub. Were you ready to go at it with him?
I mean, if necessary, if need be, but that's not me. I'm not looking for any type of things like that.
You wanted an apology about what he had said about your family, right?
Yeah, and after that, we could have shook hands and then, probably took a picture or something like that. But, he chose to take it to another route, say a couple of things that I kind of figured that's how you people would act, this how you would act. Okay, then we'll get the F out my face. That's how that really went. So, it's just some people.
And I'm assuming he did get out of your face.
Oh, immediately, expeditiously, soon, quick in a hurry, out of here. Like I told you, goodbye, sir. And, I chose to follow behind him with some more words that I don't care to use on this radio or television network. Yeah. So, that's how that story went. And it just seems like it just amazes me. He's forgotten how, we just got through monkey stomping you all over the field. Your team just got monkey stomped all over the field. But yet you getting on this Urban Meyer bandwagon, and my thing on that is, okay, Urban Meyer win the national championship, ladies and gentlemen. Guess who he gets compared to? Nick Saban. Nick Saban wins the championship. Guess who he gets compared to? People like Bear Bryant and Woody Hayes, people who's not coaching anymore. So I think people need to really think about that. I had to, actually get some football knowledge in instead of wasting my time talking about this guy all of my time. So, I think you need to explore that too. And, is it every year we're going to go through this, whether we win or lose, we're going to have this debate, is Nick Saban the greatest or not? I think he is, because the common denominator is always who? Nick Saban. Appreciate it, baby.
Okay, Dub. Bringing it heavy on a Friday afternoon. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
This is the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast.
Al is next in Dayton. Al, thank you, and good evening.
Paul, so hard. What's up, man?
Doing great, thanks.
Hey, man, first of all, I want to tell you, man, thanks for bringing the SEC to Ohio, man. You guys really got a lot of passion, and we love it up here, man. And really, man, one of your callers said it earlier, Urban win, and he get compared to Nick. And that's because Nick has set a real high standard.
No doubt.
So, much as I want to gloat and, you know, be all happy, I know he ain't going nowhere. I know we're going to have to run across him, you know, for the next couple of years if we really want to, you know, really be the new standard. So, you know, my hat's off to the SEC. My hat's off to the show. My wife love you, man. I see why they call you the chick magnet, because she like who the little guy with the big ears. You know what I'm saying?
Got it. You got it. I mean, big ears. I mean, I'll take big something, right?
Yeah. But anyway, man, hey, I wanted to touch on that Jay Paterno thing. Listen, I know I don't know the facts of the case, but if Paterno knew, man, if he had an inkling, I really feel like he had a responsibility not to just say something, but to kind of pursue it. I mean, when you're talking about a child, you're not talking about, you know, two consenting adults, and that's my only thing. I'm not saying that anybody has defended Paterno, but I know how passion goes when people love and, you know, they admire people. This Paul Finebaum right here, baby. You want to say hi? You want to just say hi to him? Look, this is real. You want to say hi to him? Okay, now she's scared, Paul. But anyway,
okay.
Hey, look.
Maybe next week.
He has the responsibility to say something. I can't let you see her, Paul. She's beautiful, man. I try to lock her up in the house now, man. She's just beautiful, man. But she has a thing for you. I don't know what that's about, man. That scares me. But listen, he had a responsibility to say something, and that's the point I want to say. And I'm off this phone, man. I appreciate your show.
Hey, have a great weekend, Al. Good to hear from you.
All right, thanks, man.
Maybe next week with Al's wife. Speaking of Friday night, we've had a lot of encounters on these Friday nights with Booger McFarland. Look forward to catching up. Booger, good evening, and thanks for the time. And want to get right to your alma mater's coaching shakeup this week. Ed Ogeron to coach the line, Kevin Steele to be the defensive coordinator. Two great recruiters. Some aren't perhaps as impressed with their selection as defensive coordinator and line coach. What do you think?
Well, first and foremost, I think everyone was just kind of down on the process. It took about 2 weeks, Paul. It took 2 weeks to find a defensive coordinator, and a lot of people thought that a lot of people turned LSU down, and Kevin Steele was kind of a fallback. With that being said, Kevin Steele is coached with Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. He's been there a couple of times, and so I think regardless of what happened that game against West Virginia when he gave up 70 points, I think the fact that he's been reinvigorated under Nick Saban, under Kirby Smart, I think he'll come to LSU and do a good job. To me, the biggest hire was Ed Ogeron. If I could have played for any other D-line coach in my career, it would have been Ed Ogeron. Like, he's that good, Paul. He's a guy that can get the best out of his players. He can recruit. He can motivate. And on top of that, look at the guys that he's turned into great ball players. When you talk about Warren Sapp, you talk about Cortez Kennedy, and the guy he recruited at USC this year, Leonard Williams. So I'm excited about Kevin Steele, but I'm ecstatic about Ed Ogeron.
Yeah, let me, not to go back to what you said a minute ago, but I will. You've heard the same rumors I have, Booger. You're probably a lot closer to it being an LSU man, but, I mean, there seemed like a lot of people. I mean, you could maybe go to a second hand who at least were offered that job. Before we get to what excites you so much, what did so many other people not like about the situation in Baton Rouge?
Well, to be honest, Paul, Les Miles isn't the easiest guy to work for. And I think a lot of people in the coaching business understand that, so I'm not saying anything that a lot of people don't already know. And I think the fact that Les is a little tough to work with, I think the fact that Corey Raymond, who is the defensive back coach, was already there, so whoever he hired wasn't going to be able to bring in a complete defensive staff. So I think those two factors was going against LSU. And on top of that, let's be honest, Paul, LSU's my alma mater, but I'll keep it real with you. The LSU program isn't what it used to be 5 years ago. And, people don't like when I say that, but we aren't where we were 5 years ago. And therefore, LSU can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, you come here, you come here. LSU has to go out and recruit and go out and get coaches just like they do players now. And so I think when you throw all those things together, it's the reason why several people, and I do mean several people, turn the job down.
Yeah, and I guess my exit question of that, Booger, we know what LSU has done defensively. We also know what they haven't done offensively.
Right.
They have some big-time stars on that offensive team. We don't know about the quarterback. How long do you think it's going to take? And if it does take a while, what's the future of Les Miles?
Well, Les has got to win next year. I mean, we can sugarcoat it all we want and talk about the past, but if you go 4 years from when Nick Saban was there and look at Les Miles' record, it looks good, but it doesn't look great. And the fact that he hadn't won an SEC title during that time, the fact that he hasn't won a national championship outside of those 4 years after Saban, to me, he's got to win next year. And you look at all the talent that LSU has in Baton Rouge, you look at the offensive, defensive line, all those juniors said they were coming back. And I'll add something to this, Paul. Les came out and said that if we can keep our juniors from the last 2 years, we will be competing for a national title. Well, guess what, Les? Although most of those juniors came back this year. So you know what that tells me? If LSU's not competing for a national title next year, then Les need to catch some heat. And I think the faithful down in Baton Rouge are a little concerned specifically about the quarterback situation. Because in my mind, Paul, LSU wasted 2014 because they have the same question now that they had back in August. Who's going to be the quarterback? And they did not develop either one of the guys in Anthony Jennings or Brandon Harris.
And that fault would have to lie with Cam Cameron, the offensive coordinator. We know about what he's done in the NFL, but that's with guys who are talented. What about developing talent?
Well, I'm going to say it's part on the player, it's part on the head coach, and it's part on the offensive coordinator. Now, here's the key. The players can change, but the head coach and the offensive coordinator have been there for a while now, okay? And you go back, especially with Les Miles, when Les had Jordan Jefferson. Jordan Jefferson didn't really develop, okay? When you gave Cam Cameron Zach Mittenberger, Cam Cameron put a lot of points on the board. So I think from a recruiting standpoint, LSU has to be able to recruit a guy that can throw the football to Baton Rouge. Cam Cameron is a good coach, so I'm going to put a little less on Cam Cameron and more on the entire staff for not being able to recruit a quarterback, and for Les Miles not to be able to open the offense up a little bit. That way you can go into a young man's home and say, hey, come to LSU, we're going to allow you to throw the football. And that's why I get a lot of credit, or give a lot of credit to Nick Saban. Nick Saban realized his offense was getting stale. It was getting too mundane, just run, run, run. So what did he do? He brought in Lane Kiffin and opened the offense up. Even though he still loves to run the football, they open the offense up, and the perception is now Alabama's a wide-open offense. And you got to give credit to Nick because he realized his offense was stale. Well, is Les going to do the same thing, realizing they ran the ball 69% of the time this year? You can't win the SEC running 69% of the time.
Booger, you mentioned Nick Saban, and yes, the offense did get a lot better. The defense at times looked like it regressed, and now two defensive coaches have left. We've talked about Steele getting a promotion. Lance Thompson leaves to go to Auburn. Some people are scratching their heads about the circumstances there. Are you reading anything into this?
No, because as long as Kirby Smart and Nick Saban are there, I think the defense will be fine. You know as well as I know, Nick Saban coaches the secondary. Kirby Smart kind of overlooks the linebackers. I think Bo Davis is still there doing the defensive line. So regardless of who he brings in, those core guys are still there. And so something tells me the fact that I think Thompson and Steele are gone, Nick Saban really isn't losing too much sleep about that because the guy who he has to have, Kirby Smart, is still there.
Booger McFarland with some Friday night nuggets. Something tells me you might catch those games on Sunday.
I'm definitely going to watch those games on Sunday. And real quick, Paul, because I've been listening to you in the car most of the day talking about Joe Paterno.
Yeah.
To me, this situation, I don't like it, and I'll tell you why. We don't know exactly what happened. I wasn't there. You wasn't there. But I find it hard to believe that on a campus that Joe Paterno basically ran himself, that he didn't know in some form or fashion what was going on. Now, I don't know how much he knew, but I find it hard to believe that at Penn State University, basically Joe Paterno University, he didn't know what was going on. And the fact that today this ruling or this, they're going to give the wins back and the money and all that good stuff, like how did we get to that point now where Joe Paterno has passed away, he's gone, but now we're going to go back and just say, you know what, hey, he really didn't know anything, we're going to give him his wins back and we're going to move on. Like something about that doesn't seem right, and the fact that, Reggie Bush and the University of Miami, all those sanctions that they got, nobody's really talking about that. Like something doesn't sit right with me about that.
Hey, Booger, really appreciate your comments. Great stuff, as always. We'll talk very soon.
Thanks, Paul.
You bet. And, Booger mentioned how Alabama's wide-open offense, but there were two games, I think, that Alabama's defense scored either 2 touchdowns or less. So it wasn't a perfect canvas. At times it looked pretty good, though, like against A&M.
Call of the day.
You're welcome to say whatever you would like. That's what this program's all about.
On the Paul Finebaum Show.
Larry is up next in Alabama.
Paul Finebaum, man, I'm loving it, brother. You bringing it today.
Thank you, Larry.
You know? Hey, look, that Bobby from Birmingham talking about the bikini. Hey, Jack, there ain't no bikini on this show. You got it. You show it all. It's raw, man. I love it, man.
It's like WWE Raw, isn't it? Hey, by the way, Monday night, while we were watching the game, who won the wrestling match?
Well, Big Show ambushed my man Roland Reigns and knocked him out.
Okay.
They had about 5 matches. That's the one that upset me. But then,
did you at any time flip over to ESPN and watch the game?
The last 2 minutes, I watched Urban Meyer make a fool out of himself scoring that touchdown. But I'm going to tell you something. You know who was in the Indianapolis Colts locker room before the playoff game? WWE, man. How about that? And they were doing a Ric Flair. Is that cool? You know, I didn't get to see.
Well, for those of us who don't follow this on a minute-to-minute basis, explain the Ric Flair.
Oh, woo! You got to strut, man. You know, you got to put that in it. You know, and you do the woo. I mean, I know everybody out there in La La Land has seen this, man.
So I take it you were a big Ric Flair man.
God, yeah, but I loved him, man. I mean, what a class act. And I know it's a grown man soap opera, brother, but you know what? Hey, it is what it is, and I love it. I know one thing, Paul Finebaum, this thing with Joe Paul, hey, that's what you call him. Look, man, hey, what's that song by the Beatles? Let it be, brother. And one man knows the truth, and he ain't here.
Words of wisdom. Let
it be. Let it be. Let it be. I'm going to sing that fight song.
Let it be. I mean, can you imagine, in a composition and construction of one of the great songs in music history, they say let it be about 9 times. Let it. That's hard to do.
You know, Paul Finebaum, you pick up on
Mark Kubiak just asked me which Beatle you would be. I think you'd be Brian. I think you would be Brian Epstein.
Oh yeah, I play drums, so I'd probably be the drummer Ringo. You know.
Yeah,
I'd love to be any of them, man. I'd love to be the Dad Burn boy that cleans their equipment. But I'm going to tell you something, Paul Finebaum.
By the way, there are a couple of spots open right now if you want to try to get the Beatles back together.
Really? Hey, I play drums. I man ain't the only one that can whoop out some 4/4 time, Jack. That's all you got to do, play drums, count the damn 4. I mean, he ain't doing nothing. I heard he got booed off the stage, man. I mean, I'm serious. You know, man, you need to sit down and shut up. Grown men are talking, kids to be seen and not heard. Grown men are talking about big boy college football. So sit down and shut up. All you got to do to beat Auburn is lose 59-0 before you play them. Is that not right?
I'll tell you what, Larry, that's one of the funniest things I've heard all year.
Go, baby. There you go. That's a Paul Fine feather in my hat, man. And roll dang tide, Finebaum. Love you,
got it. Larry, you're sounding better. Two weeks and a day after the Battle of New Orleans, I'm hearing some life in you again.
Woo! You got to strut.
You're doing the Ric Flair thing.
Oh yeah, I want John to do that. I know he didn't lose, man, but please, John, if I sing that fight song, come on, man.
Larry, you didn't hold up your end of the bargain, Larry. You're not getting that out of me, brother.
I'm trying to get the words, man. I don't know how to do all that computer.
Come on, Larry, just hop on the internet, Larry. You know how that works, don't you?
No, I don't go internet. I don't do none of that crap. You know, it's like trying to find a date on that thing. You kidding me? You can't do nothing with a computer.
You're not, so Larry, you're not part of ChristianMingle.com?
Hell no. Run me off that space. No, man. I'd off one of them chicks with Bud Light. That'd be that, wouldn't it?
He's probably on Tinder, though. He's got a smartphone. You're on Tinder, Larry?
Yeah, I got a smartphone, but I'm like Tammy, hell is smarter than I am. I'm on my son's in there now, and we're going to pull that song up. But if I sang that fight song, please, John, will you strut for them girls out there up and down the floor? Woo!
Okay.
You got it, Larry.
The Ric Flair of Shelby County. Thanks for the call.
Thank you for listening to the best of the Paul Finebaum podcast. Tune into the Paul Finebaum Show every day from 3 to 7 Eastern on the SEC Network or on the ESPN radio app.
Geico presents Strange Saving Stories. Astronomers detected an interstellar transmission. It stated, Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more. The implications were staggering. Was the cosmos telling us we could all save hundreds on car insurance with Geico? Or did their radar merely pick up a signal from the nearby Rufus and Clyde's morning show? We may never know.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.